Okay. Euzu billahi mineşşeytanirracim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Elhamdülillahi Rabbil alemin ve salatu ve selamu ala seyyidina Muhammedin ve ala alihi ve sahbihi ecmaîn. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Um, so we have changed topics after probably around a few months, right? But maybe 6 months or so to something new. And our audience may almost question like why we didn't choose the Miraj, the Ascension for today, because it is observed as the Laylatul Miraj tonight in many parts of the world, depending on the calendar shift that you may observe or not. But regardless, it was kind of on purpose, of course, not knowing that today was exactly the Laylatul Miraj, but the topics that we have been discussing were rather heavy in the sense that it was around, Allah's names, their manifestations on the world, deep discussions on faith and belief-related topics. Sincerity is something more practical, something that is more about the daily life, and that's why we switch to something like this. Again, inshallah, we will in the future can cover Miraj, the ascension of Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, which is a great topic and a relatively deep topic by itself, covered in the Risale-i Nur Collection. But again, inshallah, we will switch gears a little bit to talk more about interactions, right? I mean, sincerity is something that is towards Allah, of course. That is our sincere, like doing things only to please Allah, and that is almost the definition of sincerity. But what we are seeing here and we'll discuss will be around interactions with people, which are almost like litmus tests for sincerity. So inshallah, the reason that again I chose the subtitle of A Guide for the Road is again, more sincere we are, I think more successful we are in this road to gain Allah's pleasure, but also to be better representatives of Islam. All right. And our speakers today are going to be Dr. Colin Turner and Brother Jezmiani from Bloomfield. And I am Mustafa Akbulut from Boston. Inshallah, I will be moderating this session and the upcoming sessions about the sincerity, inshallah. And we always welcome our volunteer speakers to talk or contribute in the chat, which we have been seeing quite nicely in the past few months. Alhamdulillah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So inshallah, we are covering 20th Flash. Just as a small intro to the topic, or to the how it is covered, how this topic is covered in the Risale-i Nur Collection, is that in the book Flashes, there are 2 chapters specifically talking about sincerity. One is 20th Flash, which we will start covering today, and the other is 21st Flash. Maybe the 21st Flash might be a bit more famous among the Nur circles, because that is also prescribed by Ustad Nursi to be read every 15 days or so, every fortnight by the Risale-i Nur readers. So it is an important topic. This 20th and 21st flashes, they do mention unity of the people of belief and cooperation amongst themselves as a major theme. So again, we will start covering that too, and inshallah you will see as we cover these. And in the 20th Flash versus 21st Flash, I think one distinction could be the scale of the circles. 20th Flash, again, one might argue that they're applicable in both spheres, but in both, but more wider circles of cooperation, I think, is more broadly mentioned in the 20th Flash. 21st Flash might be seen as more immediate circle through one's own and within one's own outlook. So again, this is one easy distinction that one can make. But again, today, inshallah, and the following few sessions, we will try to cover the 20th Flash, inshallah. So Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I'll start reading, inshallah, and then we can get comments of our speakers, inshallah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. 20th Flash on sincerity, and I'll skip small parts that might be confusing, just small introduction pieces, although sometimes they might be actually useful. So I'm apologizing in advance if I miss something important there. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. إنا أنزلنا إليك الكتاب بالحق فاعبدوا الله مخلصا له الدين ألا لله الدين الخالص. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate, verily we sent the book down to you in truth. So worship God in sincerity, for God is sincerely practiced religion. Again, this is a ayah, this is a verse from the Quran. And there is a hadith. هلك الناس إلا العالمون وهلك العالمون إلا العاملون وهلك العاملون إلا المخلصون والمخلصون على خطر عظيم. All men will perish except the scholars, and all scholars, or people of knowledge, will perish except those who act in accordance with their knowledge, and all of them will perish except the sincere, and even the sincere are in great danger. And these are two guiding texts, basically, inshallah, for this part. The above verse and hadith demonstrate together how important a principle of Islam is sincerity. And we start with a question, an important and awesome question. Why is it that while the worldly and the neglectful and even the misguided and hypocrites cooperate without rivalry, the people of religion, the religious scholars and those who follow the Sufi path oppose each other in rivalry, although they are the people of truth and concord. Agreement belongs in reality to the people of concord and dispute to the hypocrites. How is it that these two have changed places? So indeed, a very important question that is being asked. And before we go into the depth of the question, and since we talked about this ayah and the hadith, I wanted to just pause here to see if we have any thoughts from our contributors. Jazmabi, would you like to start?
Assalamu alaikum. Hi to all. Maybe we can focus on the ayah and the hadith of Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam. So in the ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is the surah Zumar. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala He wants us to face Him in all our actions, to face Him alone, to make Him aim His pleasing alone. So the religion is also belonging to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, sincerely practiced religion as expressed here. And here the sincerity is Said Nursi, he is answering one question of the one student in one of his students, the old students. He is asking Said Nursi, that question is about the 21st flash, but it is both of the flashes, 20th and 21st flashes are on sincerity. So he's asking, why did you say that every fortnight you you expressed that you should read at least every fortnight one time. So he is saying that this sincerity, ikhlas, is the spirit of all our actions. If there is no sincerity in our actions, there is no spirit. The spirit, this body is nothing. So if there is no sincerity in our actions, we would do nothing. In fact, maybe mostly we can fall into the error of committing shirk, the shirk khafi. May Allah protect us, the hidden shirk. So here, Rasulullah, he is attracting our attention. The knowledge, we should learn knowledge. So those who are those all people will perish except for the scholars, and those who are practicing their knowledge will be accepted among them, because of applying our knowledge is very important. But if a person is applying without sincerity, without the pleasing of Allah, so it will be also in vain. And we can get sincerity, but we can lose it easily. That is also, we are in danger of losing the sincerity. At the end of the 21st flash, there is a dua, a supplication. Allahumma ij'alna min al-mukhlisin. So mukhlisin al-mukhlasin. So there are two types of people: those who are gaining sincerity with their efforts, we call them mukhlis, and the second group is those who are protected by Allah, their sincerity. Those are mukhlas. In Surah Al-Maryam, Allah is mentioning for Musa alayhi salam, he was one of our servants, protected their sincerity. So Allah has protected his prophets from sinning. Like that, they became sincere by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah is providing their sincerity. So it is very, of course, very high level of sincerity, that level. But mostly we should make effort to be sincere. We should try to be in our actions following the pleasing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it came to my mind, that aspect. Yes.
Jazakallah. Indeed, very, very great explanations, both for the hadith and the getting the attention to the danger, right, that's mentioned in the hadith is especially important. It is a constant striving, and probably, as you said, about the reading of the 21st flash every 2 weeks is almost around that too, where without sincerity, whatever we do is in the risk of being meaningless. So that is a constant danger and a constant reminder that is needed, I guess, for us. Konabi, any comments from you before we go into the text further?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Sincerity is a problem because we can't tell whether we are sincere, and we can't try to be sincere.
Yeah.
When we try to be sincere, then there's a problem because we don't know what sincerity looks like. It's one of these invisible things, and all we can try to do is to stay away from things which we know are conducive to insincerity. In other words, all we can try to do is to do things not for the sake of the I, not for the sake of the ana, but for the sake of Allah, and then forget it. This notion of trying to be sincere is it's actually Shaitan's way of making us fail, because we concentrate on our own sincerity, and then it's as though we know what it means to be sincere. And if we did, that would be even worse for us, because it would bring pride. So it's one of these, it's an exir, it's a strange elixir, which is not tangible. You can't smell it, you can't taste it, and you certainly can't see it in yourself. But you can look for it in others, and you can try to believe it in others. You know, so we should try to see sincerity in others, and we should ourselves simply try to stay away from things which denote insincerity. And that means basically doing everything for the sake of Allah only.
Yeah. Jazakallah. Thanks. Yeah, this is a great point. And maybe one reason that like some of these like examples or the methods that are explained by Ustad Nursi in both 20th Flash and 21st Flash are around things that break sincerity or the things that signify that, you know, there is sincerity or no sincerity. So maybe we are given these tests like or these milestones or these, you know, small you know, these like take home COVID tests nowadays pretty I guess popular. Like maybe, you know, some of these things that are mentioned in these two parts of the Risale-i Nur are around what you said, right? Like to see if to test ourselves against those and see if we are there or we are getting there or we are diverging from that notion or not. But you're right, I guess it's not easy to, or it's impossible to, I guess, to
I think so.
try to nail it.
There's a danger in saying, you know, I'm sincere. You
Yeah.
know, it's like I just can't imagine anyone saying I'm sincere and actually being sincere. It's the same when someone comes to your house to build something or to fix something. I remember a few years ago we had some work done on our house, and we wanted to get estimates from 4 or 5 different builders. So they were coming to our house, and one builder would say, I can do it for this price. The other builder would say, I can do it for that price. And then as soon as they said, oh, I'm honest, you won't find anyone cheaper than me, I'm very honest, you realize that is not the person that you want to employ. Because if someone has to say that I'm honest, then clearly there's a problem there. You know, it's this kind of self-regard and virtue signaling, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work. There's always something problematic there and slightly satanic as well. So we have to beware.
Thank you. And yeah, let me go into the text then a little bit, and thank you both for setting the scene for this. You know, what we will find here is not step-by-step guide to be sincere, but more like how to avoid things that elude unsincerity. And also sincerity is a constant struggle and not just one target or an aim that we get and we are done. So inshallah, I'll read through.
Came to my mind regarding
Sure.
the Colin Abi's
Sure.
attracting our attention. Trying to be sincere, it will cause us to be insincere. Said Nursi, he is mentioning this in Mesnevi Nuriya while explaining the intentions. So the intentions are changing our actions into ibadah, and some of them are into sins. For example, he's saying that in intention there is an feature, there is an quiddity, let's say. It is transforming the good actions into sinning, like making an ibadah for others, for getting their attentions. So it is a kind of shirk khafi. On the other hand, maybe it may cause a bad action with a good sincerity, a good intention. It may transform into a good deed. So Said Nursi is calling the intention as a spirit. And the spirit of that spirit is sincerity. So the intentions, maybe I express it trying to be sincere. Maybe we can call it as making supplication for being sincere. Oh Allah, I am trying to be sincere. I'm not available. I'm not really capable of attracting that. So making supplication that we are imperfect, so confessing our mistakes and making supplication for getting sincerity that is very important, maybe wanting from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes.
Yeah, inshallah. Indeed. Yeah. Yeah, like as we discussed, right? I mean, everything is controlled by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and even our hearts. So indeed, making supplication to gain sincerity, and to stay sincere, I think is important. Indeed. Okay, inshallah, I'll start and I'll read the question again. And again, the question might not look like it is directly related to sincerity, but again, all these remedies that are suggested here in the rest of this part is around gaining sincerity. So inshallah, it'll be related. An important and awesome question. Why is it that while the worldly and the neglectful and even the misguided and hypocrites cooperate without rivalry, the people of religion, the religious scholars, and those who follow the Sufi path oppose each other in rivalry, although they are the people of truth and concord? Agreement belongs in reality to the people of concord and dispute to the hypocrites. How is it that these two have changed places? The answer: we will set forth 7 of the extremely numerous causes of this painful, disgraceful, and awesome situation, one that causes the zealous to weep. The first: just as dispute among the people of the truth does not arise from lack of the truth, so too the agreement prevailing among the people of neglect does not arise from any possession of truth. Rather, it is that a specific duty and particular function has been assigned to the classes in society like the worldly, those engaged in politics and those who have received a secular education, and thus the functions of the various groups, societies, and communities have been defined and become distinguished from one another. Similarly, the material reward they are to receive for their functions in order to maintain a livelihood, as well as the moral reward that consists in the attention they receive from people, from men, for the sake of their ambition and pride, this too is established and specified. There is therefore nothing held in common to the degree that it might produce conflict, dissension, and rivalry. However evil be the path that they tread, they will be able to preserve unity and agreement. And this is about the worldly. There was a small footnote about the worldly, which I kind of skipped, which appears as 2 here. And that is about Ehli Dünya. The translation of the worldly is Ehli Dünya. Some of us are probably familiar, is basically people who prefer life of this world over the hereafter, and do whatever they do for the sake of this world. So their priority is this world. And again, in this part, basically the explanation was about the people of this world, people of the world, you know, secular people who are in the secular side of things, and how their organization helps them avoid conflict among themselves. Again, there is a footnote about the attention, which translates from teveccüh nas, right? I mean, attention from people, or people's liking of someone. So footnote: be aware that the attention of people cannot be demanded, but only given. And again, in this day and age, I think this is probably important with the social media, because attention, likes, subscribers is practically everything for some people. But this is very important. Be aware that the attention of people cannot be demanded, but only given. If it is given, one should not delight in it. If one delights in it, sincerity is lost and hypocrisy takes its place. The attention of people, if accompanied by the desire for honor and fame, is not a reward and a prize, with a reproach and chastisement for lack of sincerity. Such attention of people, such honor and fame, harm sincerity, the source of vitality for all good deeds. And even though they yield a slight pleasure as far as the gate of the tomb, on the other side of that gate, they take on the form of torment. One should not, therefore, desire the attention of people, but flee and shy away from it. Be warned, all you who worship fame and run after honor and rank. So this is a very stark warning, I think, against seeking fame and seeking attention from people, especially for the people of religion. And I'll read the second part of this so that we have a more complete picture. But as for the people of religion, the scholars and those who follow the path, the duty of each is concerned with all men. Their material reward is not set and specified, and their share in social esteem and acceptance and public attention is not predetermined. Many may be candidates for the same position, and many hands may stretch out for each moral and material reward that is offered. Hence, it is that conflict. Hence, it is that conflict and rivalry arise. Concord is changed into discord, and agreement into dispute. Before I go into the remedy and cure, maybe I'll stop here because there is that important footnote here as well. But also, I'm going to ask our speakers to explain, like, this part about like the worldly. What do we mean in this case by the worldly or the, and the people of misguidance in this case? I mean, and it's not. It looks like a larger scale with like politics and education and things like that. So I wanted to get some thoughts on that first. How should we understand this, and also how should we understand the cause? I mean, rivalry not being present in the worldly and being present for the people of religion.
I want to get our attention to the question. In the question, Said Nursi is defining agreement belongs in reality to the people of concord. So in the treatise of brotherhood, he is defining that among the people of belief, among the people of the members of the religion. So it may be considered all the heavenly religions. He is defining the people of belief. So they should be the people of concord, because there are ties of unity, bonds of union, there are relations of fraternity as numerous as the divine names. So we are connected with each believer with the number of the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it shows us that through the light of Iman, consciousness of Iman. So Iman, belief is requiring us to be in concord with other fellow believers. But on the other hand, disputing should belong to the hypocrites because they are not dependent, they are not connected with each other with the ties of bonds of Iman. So unfortunately, this is very awesome situation. Said Nursi, he is calling very painful, disgraceful. So even it should cause us to weep. He's defining as the zealous, those who are striving for the religion, those who are striving for the community to be in a good condition. So all these these kind of conflicts among the believers should make us weep. So this is very terrifying situation, because we try to save the people's eternal life, but we are not in concord. Yes.
Maybe I'll add Harun Abi's question here and then turn to Kun Abi is that Harun Abi asks, because this is related to the question as well. He says, can you elaborate on the groups of people in the question? Should we consider them in Turkey's context or in a more general context? So I think because there are very specific things, right? If you think about Turkey and the history of how this question comes about, you know, the tradition of the Takka, you know, the tradition of the Sufi paths and their followers, and the tradition of madrasa, the you know the scholars in the madrasas, and these being somewhat in rivalry to each other. Um, should we just see it in that relatively small window, or should we expand that to further? Konab, would you like to take a shot at that?
It's a difficult question and it's quite complex. If we're talking about Western society, we know that in the West, the sun of religion set 500 years ago, basically. And so for the past 500 years, the Western civilization has had to get by on its own, by its own merit, by its own criterion of what right and wrong is. And that is a mishmash of materialism, atheism, naturalism, and Judeo-Christian moral principles. So it's a big mix. And because generally for the Western individual, and by West here, I'm not just talking geographically Western, I'm including places like Australia, Japan, all of the very so-called progressive nations, highly secular, highly worldly. They are the Western nations. They have very well developed hierarchies, social hierarchies, and because these people don't believe in heaven and hell, they believe that their rewards and punishments happen in this world, and therefore they have to have a highly compartmentalized social structure in order to play out, being human in this world, in order to get what one believes one deserves, which is why they set up what they believe is meritocracies, the survival of the fittest, and this seeps through into the education system. So all of these are very, very highly structured, very sophisticated systems to allow people to play at being human, actually inhuman, within the confines of this worldly life. And so there are specific duties, specific functions, different classes, and different, I would say, congregations, really, different demographics. And they all have their own highly stylized, highly unique functions and structures. And that's it, basically. So everything there is ordered. And if you want to get on in the world, if you want to succeed, there are certain things that you have to do to succeed. There are certain recipes for success that you have to follow, certain paths that you have to tread. It's not really a meritocracy at heart. It's who you know rather than what you know. But on the surface, because of this democratic illusion, it functions as apparently as a meritocracy. And in many senses, it does work through a merit, systems of merit. That's how people get ahead. Whereas in Muslim societies, and particularly in the Muslim majority world, those structures don't really exist. Although, of course, places like Turkey, secularized Muslim societies have imported systems. They import systems wholesale. But because there is not the cultural precedence for such systems, they don't do it very well. They do it very badly, actually. And that's because they have retained some of their Islamic sincerity. This is why they're not able to be sincere. It's paradoxical. They can't be sincerely inhuman as they can in the West. People who are, and again, this is very black and white, people who are functioning in Western society, basically, they are very sincere in their unbelief. They're sincere in their secularism. They are sincere in their materialism. But in the Muslim world, we are not sincere in our irreligion. We are half within Islam and half out. And because we're not completely out, we still retain, the Muslim ethos, moral ethos, ethical standards. We still retain them to a certain extent. We haven't been able to get rid of them as they have in the West. We stand with one foot inside Islam and one foot outside, and that causes big problems. We can't be sincerely materialistic. We can't be sincerely naturalistic, or we can't be sincerely a sincere unbeliever. It's impossible for us. All we can be is a munafiq, really. We can't be kafir, and we can be a little bit mushrik, the shirk khafi that was mentioned, but mostly we are guilty of nifaq, because we have one foot inside Islam, one foot outside Islam. Whereas in the West, they are totally outside. They have their own system, and within the secular frame of reference, it works quite well.
But should we understand this as like it is wrong to have a structure in the society?
It's not wrong for them. They don't think it's wrong. Shaitan has structures, unbelief has, a society run on materialistic lines. Again, the fact that they have structures is something which in a sense is godly, because we're told that we have to structure our lives. So as I said before, there's a kind of mix of materialism, atheism, and there is still the underlying Judeo-Christian moral frameworks in place. So they are still there. So it is also mixed up in the West. But in the West, people are avowedly secular and avowedly unbelievers. They will say, if they don't believe, they will say, I don't believe. But in Muslim societies, you won't find anyone who says, I am kafir. Very few. You will get people who act as though they are kafir, and who have atheistic lifestyles, but they won't admit it. They would never say, I am an unbeliever.
Should we also look at this from, like, for example, a Muslim living in the West, and like they, for example, play their part in the society perfectly well, right? They are, engineers, doctors, whatever they are, they don't really fight. They don't really have an issue there, but they go, to their mosque and they fight with the others because they don't like the color of the carpet, or they have these small issues, like we will have the partition here or there, or small things like that. Is it also like the circle of, even in one person, sometimes I see this happening. I mean, can we also understand this as the circle into the secular circle and its structure versus the religious life of people across the world, in the Muslim world? It might be a larger circle, of course, in a Muslim majority country, but in a smaller scale. Could we not say this is also happening, Muslims living in the West?
It is happening because, and you're right, because we are not living religious lives. Where are religious lives being led? I don't see it anywhere. You may find individuals who are trying as best they can to live a so-called religious life. But if you are a Muslim living in a Western society, it's impossible to live a religious life, because almost impossible. All you can do is a few of the rites and rituals that we've retained through history, but there's lots that we can't do. We can't order our finances according to Islamic standards. We can't live our social lives according to Islamic standards. It's very, very difficult, because we're living in either, you could say, Darul Harb. Maybe some people won't like these terms, but I'm afraid practically it's true, as we can see now, Darul Harb, or Darul Kufr, or maybe we should say Darul Laik, secular Dar. We're living in there, and we are living half lives, unfortunately. So we can, you know, our faiths are very personal and privatized faiths, and that's how the West likes it, and that's how the West has forced us into. The West has forced us to make those choices, to
Yeah.
privatize and personalize our faith.
And we can probably argue if the what we call the Muslim majority countries are in a shape where the ideal Islam is being lived. But again, I think, you know, I don't want to draw a dark picture here, because again, hopefully we all can live, especially if we are sincere, right, in whatever circumstances we live in. Hopefully, inshallah.
No, we should be very hopeful. We should be very hopeful, especially if you have something like Risale, for example, then you don't have any problems. You don't have any problems, really. I'm looking at, you know, the bigger picture, because what Ustad is saying here was certainly true for 1920s, 1930s, and to a certain extent, a lot of what he said is true today as well. But the complexion of the Muslim world has changed a lot, and it is probably worse than it was at Ustad's time. You know, Ustad was very, very wary of the growth of secularism and materialism. In another of my dars groups, we're doing at the moment the 10th word, which, as you know, is about the hereafter. And he wrote this because he was worried about the growth of materialism and naturalism. And that is even worse today.
Yeah.
That is worse today than it was then. So things have changed. We don't need to paint a dark picture. The dark picture is already there. We don't need to paint it. We need to be hopeful, and we need to do what you're doing. We need to do what you're doing in this group. You know, you set up this group, and you're talking about the truth, and that's as much as we can do.
Inshallah, inshallah. Jazmi abi, you were saying something, I guess.
I wanna focus on the first sentence of the first. It says, just as dispute among the people of truth does not arise from lack of truth. So as Colin Hocam expressed, we must be hopeful. Yes, because Said Nursi, he is saying that here the dispute among the people of truth is not it's not because of they are truthless. So they have a truth in their hand, but they cannot preserve it. They must make effort for preserving that truth. So in one of the letters of Emirda Said Nursi, he is expressing this as Colonel Jam has expressed. Risale-i Nur Alhamdulillah has given us many keys of the puzzles of Quran. So he solved many maybe problems, many questions, puzzles has been shown very beautifully. So Said Nursi is saying that letter, in the face of today's awesome, unprecedented misguidance, it preserves, Risale-i Nur is preserving the ordinary believers' belief from doubts and their Islam from baseless scruples. Just as the time of believers, the believers everywhere, even in India, in China, are being shaken by the predominance of fearsome misguidance of the age. They are falling into doubt as the truth of Islam, whether it is the Islam is not the truth, as they are falling into that scruple. They hear that a work has appeared that proves conclusively all the truth of Iman, defeating the philosophy, silencing atheism. They are gaining strength. Their doubts and scruples disappearing. Their Iman is safe and strengthened. So at this first sentence, Said Nursi, he is supporting us. You are not truthless. It's not because of your lack of truth, but there is a problem of sincerity. So try to gain that sincerity. Make dua for gaining that sincerity. So he is showing us how to gain sincerity, how to solve this problem of this conflict among the communities of Islamic world. So all the groups who are striving for the people's eternal life. So if you gather together, if you unite on the pillars of Iman, so finding the essential matters, so you can succeed your aim. So being true, being hopeful at this very beginning of the answer, he is giving us hope of this. Yes, we are not lack of truth. Yes.
So yeah, maybe I was wrong in the beginning saying that this is not like as much about the topics of belief, but it very much is, right? Like looks like, as you said, it actually gives us, I mean, any doubts that people might have, because there is that difference, right? Like there is that worldly attainments or technological advancements of the secular society that we see, and we might have these doubts about is there a truth there and a lack of truth here, that type of a doubt. And I think, as you said, Jasmine, it is in this part, and probably in the beginning of all these reasons, I think Said Nursi mentions a hope, a sentence of hope, saying, just as dispute among the people of truth does not arise from lack of the truth, so too the agreement prevailing among the people of neglect does not arise from any possession of truth. So it's not the truth that gives them the power, but maybe this organization or this compartmentalization, as Kohan Abi said. And it is not the lack of truth on the people of truth. It is basically because people are not as organized, or people or our aims appear to be aiming at the same thing. Like I'll actually mention here, right? People of religion, scholars, those who follow the path, the duty of each concerned with everyone, the material reward is not set and specified. So it is not the same structure. So people are kind of having that rivalry because everybody is working on the same thing, basically, from that perspective.
One
Thanks
more
for that.
point came to my mind at the 17th Flash. Said Nursi, he is addressing those people who are encouraging Muslims to embrace this world, forcibly driving them to European industry and progress. So he is, this is a long topic, but I want to focus on the end of this seventh note. He is saying that Said Nursi is, according to the principles, the people of Islam are not in need of being encouraged and driven to the world and to greed. Progress and public order cannot be secured in that way. They are rather in need of having their working conditions set in order, all security being established among them, and having the principles of cooperation encouraged. And so he's ending with the last sentence: these needs can be brought about through the sacred commands of religion and fear of Allah, taqwa, mindfulness of Allah, and firm adherence to religion. So setting the working conditions in order, security, this is very important among the Muslim communities, and having the principles of cooperation. So with, of course, this can be secured with the sincerity, so should be encouraged. Yes.
Yeah.
Jasmine makes a really good point there about security. You know, one of the problems in the Muslim world and the Muslim Middle East and further afield is lack of security and lack of, for example, in the UK, there is the National Health Service. These social security systems, from one point of view, they do make people a little bit lazy. But from the other point of view, they make everything systematized and secure, so people know where they are. Whereas in Muslim majority countries, where the social justice system and the social what's the refa? I can't think of the English word. Social security system are not very well developed at all, and so therefore there's much more insecurity. People are unsure about their financial futures, and there's much more rivalry. But when you bring religion into the mix, you know, it says for the people of religion, their material reward is not set. And in any way, there is no guarantee that their material reward will be in this world. What we've done is we've adopted the secularism and the materialism of the West, and we start now to think, even as believing Muslims, that there is a guarantee of a reward in this world. There isn't. You know, our reward for the things that we do for the sake of our deen is with Allah. Whether it's in this world or the next world, none of our business. But we seem to think that, you know, because there are, as he says here, there are many candidates for the same position, then rivalry occurs. You know,
Yeah.
It says many hands may stretch out for each moral and material reward that is offered, whereas the true rewards are spiritual rewards, which may not be in this world at all. And if we don't accept that, then conflict and rivalry will arise, even though truth is on our side. And then, as he says, concord is changed into discord and agreement is turned into dispute. Whereas on the other side, you know, for the people of irreligion, they don't have truth on their side, but what they have on their side is necessity. And there's an English saying, necessity is the mother of invention. When you need something, and when you acknowledge that need, and you all come together acknowledging the same need, even though you're enemies, you will unite. This is why they have no truth on their side, but they unite because they need each other.
Yeah.
They need each other for those worldly purposes, and they work together with sincerity. Now, when I say sincerity, I mean sincerity in an irreligious sense. They are sincerely working for kufr.
Yeah. And which is also mentioned in the later in this text, right?
Yes.
If you are sincere, even in the wrong way, you know, Allah grants your wishes because you are sincere in your wish. We on the chat we had a couple points made and a question maybe asked from Okanabe. He says about security. The word security in the context is that he says what I understand from security when I read the original text is emniyeti umumi is trust between parties in a Muslim society, trust between departments, groups, trust in society, and trust in trade. So emniyet, right, might mean security, or emin, which is about being trustworthy. So adds another dimension, I think, to the word security there, which is
In
great.
one hadith, Rasulullah SAW, he is defining the true Muslim is the one from whose tongue and hand the Muslims are safe. So that hadith is very famous. So if we are safe, if we know that my brother, so fellow believers, will not say anything bad about me, and I will not get any harm from that person. So this is showing the true belief. So it shows that, as Said Nursi is defined at the end of the seventh note, the sacred commands of religion. So applying them, so taqwa, so being mindful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, adherence to religion. So these only, as the hadith is defining, being safe, feeling safe, but are, Muslim, fellow believers. So this is very important, being safe in terms of their tongue and hand. Yes.
Yeah. Brother Danny on the chat asks a question and, you know, wants to see if his understanding of Imam Nursi is correct, but I'll leave it to the end because it can take a bit long. And I'll try to read through this because I would like to make sure we are done with the first reason and we did the remedy section of this, but inshallah I won't forget and I'll read that as well. Now the cure and remedy for this appalling disease is sincerity. Sincerity may be attained by preferring the worship of God to the worship of one's own soul, by causing God's pleasure to vanquish the pleasure of the soul. The soul is the nafs, so pleasure of the soul, and the ego, and thus manifesting the meaning of the verse, In ajriya illa ala Allah. Verily, my reward is from Allah alone. By renouncing the material and moral reward to be had from man, and thus manifesting the meaning of the verse. وَمَا عَلَى الرَّسُولِ إِلَّا الْبَلَاغُ. Note is incumbent on the messenger, but conveying the message. So messenger's only duty is conveying the message. This is again from Quran. And by knowing that such matters as goodly acceptance and making a favorable impression and gaining the attention of man are God's concern and a favor from him, and that they play no part in conveying the message, which is one's own duty, nor are necessary. Sorry, I'll take it back. And making a favorable impression and gaining the attention of men are Allah's concern and a favor from him, and that they play no part in conveying the message, which is one's own duty, nor are they necessary for it. These acceptance, etc., are not necessary for it, nor is one charged with gaining them. By knowing this, a person will be successful in gaining sincerity, otherwise it will vanish. And there was a footnote here, and I'll read that too. One should also take as one's guide the quality of preferring others to oneself, the same quality of the companions, the Sahaba, that is praised in the Quran. For example, this in Quran is called ithar. For example, when giving a present or performing an act of charity, one should always prefer the recipient to oneself, or prefer other brothers to oneself, and without demanding or inwardly desiring any material reward for religious service. Know one's act to be purely Allah's grace and not impose a sense of obligation on man. Nothing worldly should be sought in return for religious service, for otherwise sincerity will be lost. Men, in this context, workers of religion, have many rights and claims and may even deserve zakat, but it cannot be demanded. When one receives something, it cannot be said that this is the reward for my service. Rather, in perfect contentment, one should always prefer to oneself others who are more deserving. Thus, manifesting the meaning of وَيُؤْثِرُونَ عَلَى أَنفُسِهِمْ وَلَوْ كَانَ بِهِمْ خَسَاسًا. They prefer others to themselves, though poverty be their lot. Again, this is from Quran. One may be saved from this terrible danger and gain sincerity. So, this is, again, the result or the remedy that is being given here are actually based on these ayat, right? We mentioned, I guess, 3 ayat in total. One is in ajri illa ala Allah, where my reward is from Allah alone. وَمَا عَلَى الرَّسُولِ إِلَّا الْبَلَاغُ. Nothing is incumbent on the messenger but conveying the message. And thirdly, وَيُثِرُونَ عَلَى أَنفُسِهِمْ وَلَوْ كَانَ بِهِمْ خَسَاسًا. These 3 ayat, these 3 verses being the guide for this remedy. So I'll also read Brother Denny's question. It may or may not be directly related to this, but I think, inshallah, our speakers can connect these. I'll leave it to them. And Harnabi also wrote a message. I'll also read that too. Then he says, I get a sense that Imam Said Nursi tend to support secular system as long as government does not interfere in the religious affair. Hence, did not fully support authoritarian systems. Rather, he preferred republican and democratic systems like the Western world partially have, ? There. With regards to civil society, given this neutrality of religion in secular system, people perform religious deeds without external enforcement, but through enlightenment in heart. Please correct me in case I have wrong understanding. How Nabi wrote, I agree with you at the core of your message. The name secular or Islamic does not mean anything at all. Nursi strongly supports freedom against oppression, describes the first caliphs as leaders of a republic. I'll have this question as well, because we kind of touched upon social issues too, I believe. But also, I think to summarize this message or this remedy of not wanting anything for any religious service. Ismail, would you like to say a few words about this or the question?
I wanna, in fact, comment on one aspect Said Nursi expressed in the footnote, the praising,
Sure.
the people that praising. So Said Nursi in one letter objecting the praise of one of his students, Husrev Altınbaşak. He is Husrev Altınbaşak is praising him a lot, complimenting on him. And he says that I don't join this brother's feeling. So the pleasing of Allah. So if Allah pleases, that's enough. So if he is friend, everything is friend, and if he is not friend, if the whole world applaud you, appreciate you, your doings, it will worth nothing. Maybe not worth 5 cents. So the people's appreciation, their liking us, admiration, in these kind of the deeds of the eternal life. It is, if it is the essential cause of our doing that action, it will validate our action. So if it is causing us to choose to do that action, so it will remove the sincerity in that action. So if it is encouraging us, it will remove the purity of that action. So we should only want as a sign of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's acceptance in that action, and not wanting that with heart, and even not with the tongue, not only not that enough, even the heart should not want that appreciation that the people's admiring us and so on. So only we can accept, as Ibrahim alayhi salam, he defined in the ayah, وَجْعَلْ لِي لِسَانَ صِدْقٍ فِي الْآخِرِينَ. So very beautifully expressed in the ayah, and it is in the Shu'ara. So he said, he made the dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, oh Allah, grant me a mention of honor among the later generations. So he made that dua, bless me with honorable mention among the other. So like the salawat that we are making for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah has accepted that dua. We are making in every salah, we are making dua for Ibrahim alayhi salam, kama barakta ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim. So this dua is accepted. So we can make this dua. We can accept the people's appreciation as an acceptance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's pleasing. Yes.
Inshallah. Jazakallah khair. I mean, it's indeed, I kind of we only have left like the last few minutes for a relatively deep topic, but inshallah next week we will pick it up from there too. But indeed, like true sincerity and not asking for any worldly reward, and in the guidance of those ayats is definitely worth hours of talking. Kolnabi, would you like to have any final remarks about both these?
Just very quick one on Danny's comment.
Yes.
I think that Harun Hoxha was very diplomatic in his response. What he said about the secular system, but we shouldn't take what Ustad Nursi did in the 50s, counseling his disciples to vote for the Democrats. We shouldn't take that as an indication of his support for a democratic system, because Ustad calls democracy the tyranny of the majority over the minority. So I don't think we can say that he was a champion of democracy. We have to be very careful and very guarded when we talk about Ustad's political tendencies. I don't think we can discern them from his acts in the 50s, out of context. That's all.
And it'll be a topic of discussion by itself. So maybe in some of the future sessions we can devote those devote that to these probably multifaceted and probably within the context of the time as well, as you said. But yeah, I mean, there are definitely things around secularism and things that we can definitely discuss, and how we should think about them in this, and how should we apply them in this context as well. Thank you all, inshallah. Jazakallah khair for attending. Would you like to end with the dua, Jazma abi?
Inshallah, we can make dua at the end of the last part of the Sincerity, the 21st Flash. Said Nursi, he is advising us to make that dua. So at least every fortnight, very important. Inshallah, let me make that dua. اللهم بحق سورة الإخلاص اجعلنا من عبادك المخلصين المخلصين آمين آمين آمين. We make dua that may Allah make us, for the sake of Surah Ikhlas, place us among your servants who attain sincerity. So آمين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
جزاك الله خير. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة.